Good morning, or rather, good morning. And I'd like to welcome you to the September 2020 Chancellor's Town Hall. My name is Joe Lawless, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer in the Chancellor's office, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this Town Hall. So thank you for participating virtually through YouTube. We use this format so that we can have the most people possible participate. So the way that this is going to work is our participants today have messages that they would like to, messages of welcome that they'd like to deliver to you. But during the town hall, if you would like to ask questions, you can email them to uwttownhall@uw.edu. You can do that. People have done it before, so I've got a lineup of questions already. You can do it during the town hall, or if you're watching this tonight at 2 o'clock in the morning and you still have a question that you'd like to ask, you can still email questions to that email address, and we will answer them. It also helps to inform our FAQs. If a lot of people have similar questions, we can add them to our FAQs. So thank you. And if we don't get to your question during this hour, which we don't always get to all of them, we'll post them on our Q&A with video of this session. So on the call with us today are Chancellor Pagano, Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs Jill Purdy, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs Mentha Hines Wilson, and Vice Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion James McShay. So Chancellor Pagano is going to be calling on these people. Actually, I'll be calling on these people to answer some of your questions during this call. So Mark, would you like to kick things off?
Sure. Thank you very much, Joe. And welcome, everybody. Welcome to probably the fall for the ages. We all thought last school year was a school year for the ages, but I think we'll have another one. So it's good to see everyone. I hope you are off to a great start. Even if I'm seeing you on this little screen, actually, I'm not seeing you, you're seeing us, but you know what I mean. It's good to be with you all, even if it's virtually. We didn't expect to be like this, but we've found ourselves in this position, so we are gonna make the best of it, and we are proud to do so. So as Joe said, we are gonna go through some administrative activities, talking about what's happening on campus and how to come to campus, all those kinds of things. Going to talk about the budget, going to talk about breaking down racism, several different things. But before I did that, it's been so long since I've seen you, I wanted to talk to you about a couple other things that have happened over the summer. But before I even do that, I wanted to remind everybody that we are a USU, or an urban serving institution that has values of social justice and civic engagement. So I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't remind you to vote. So if you haven't registered to vote, if you're a student, make sure you register. And if you're not a student, if you're an employee, please go out and vote. That's our responsibility, and I want to encourage you to do that. So with that being said, what has been going on over the summer? Well, a lot of things have been going on. I'm going to just highlight a couple, and then we'll probably address several more during the question sessions. But one very positive thing that happened essentially on June 30th, as you all know, we had a 10-year fundraising campaign for the UW Tacoma. It was part of the UW's campaign, and the open part of it, the public part of it, was essentially 5 years long and started about the time that I joined the campus in 2015. When I got here in 2015, the campus had established a goal of $45 million, which caused me to swallow a little bit. I was a little worried about that, a small campus and a small community, mostly a blue collar community, but that was our goal. Well, we catapulted past that goal in September 2018 and reestablished a goal of $55 million to be completed prior to June 30th, 2020. So right at the end, actually on June 29th, we received a major gift towards our new building. And then on the 30th, we received another very major generous gift, which got us past our campaign goal. And we actually finished that after all the dust settled at $55,729,503. So let's hear it for the meeting our campaign. Most of these funds go to specific purposes. A lot of them are directed at our students, scholarships, programs that we have around campus. But that is wonderful news for this community to be able to say that we achieved our campaign. Now, as part of that, we wanted to celebrate those donors and the fact that we made that campaign goal. It's a lot of folks are worried about celebrating right now in these dark times, but I still believe in celebrating the good things. It helps us deal with some of the things that aren't so pleasant. So what we had tended to do in the past is, with the first year I got here, we had a summer soiree on our campus where we invited donors to campus, people who had supported our campus throughout the years, and we thanked them with a wonderful dinner, and we gave them a talk about something going on in campus, and used the time to actually fundraise on that night to support our students. That had been very effective and had grown in scale and size over the 5 years that I was here, and we were planning to do that again this year, and hopefully to celebrate a successful campaign, which ended up being the case, and also to celebrate our 30th anniversary. Well, you all know what happened. We couldn't have a face-to-face event, but we were able to celebrate this milestone in this campaign in other ways, and we did it in 2 steps. So we decided to start it out in 2 steps, and I'm going to explain that in a minute. But I also wanted to remind you that as we finished up our campaign, when we went into the COVID situation, many of our families and community members also stepped up and contributed to this campaign specifically for our students that were in need because of the pandemics around them. And we were able to quickly bolster the support in our emergency aid and our pantry. And it's actually fortunate that everybody stepped up and did that, because those 2 entities saw use in the first couple months after COVID hit that was similar to all of last year. So thank you all who took part in that. It was very much appreciated. So back to the celebration, what we decided to do was invite all of our founders and major donors to a virtual event that was at the end of July, and thank them face to face for helping us bring this campus here and for the generous financial support. And you have to look at the good things with the bad things. It was unfortunate we couldn't bring them together, but because it was virtually, we ended up getting some very special individuals to come to this event that may have not come otherwise. That night on the virtual event, we had Bill Phillip, one of the major founders of this campus. He was there with his family. Jim Milgard and his family were there. Rod Hegenboo, who is one of the folks who has endowed a student scholarship. We had our Mayor Victoria Woodards was present. Brian Ebersol, who was in the legislature and also a mayor of this town, who was key in bringing the campus here. Past regents, current regents, Herb Simon, Dave Zeke. We had a wonderful crowd, and they were so thankful of what this community did for the university, and now what this university has done in response back for the community. They're so proud of this place, and you could just feel it in the room. Most of the folks on this Zoom call with me right now were there too, and I think the feeling was mutual. It was a very warm night. They began reminiscing about how they got the campus here, and that was some of the highlights when they talked about the helicopter incident, when the UW was dragging its feet a little bit on agreeing to do a campus here. So the community got together and invited Sam Smith, the president of WSU, to town, and they flew him around town in a helicopter, and boy, that did the trick pretty quickly. The UW decided maybe we should have a campus here, and the rest is history. So that was the first event that began our celebration, and they were very thankful for that. But that night, I also talked to them about our responsibility to thank the community, because everybody wasn't there at that virtual event. So we were going to thank the community, and we were going to do that with the fireworks display in August, and we're going to talk about that later. I saw a question come to us already about the fireworks display, but that's where that idea originally came from. We could thank the people that showed up for that event in person, but then we wanted to thank the rest of the community and the city that has shepherded us to our growth. So that was the background of that. So other things that have happened We have been on restricted hiring since just after the pandemic, when it became evident about the state's loss of tax revenue. And we are a state institution, so we began to get more restrictive in our hiring. Every hire on campus had to come to my office. Faculty hires actually had to go all the way to the provost office, but we were able to hire some key positions on campus. One that I know about is Dr. Heather Dillon is here now. She is the head of our new mechanical engineering program, which is just being launched. And we have 3 new assistant professors that have also been hired for that program, and it's well on its way to start. Also, we were able to attract Rodney Clark. He is the interim associate vice chancellor for enrollment services. So Mentha and her team have brought him to campus to help us with our enrollment efforts. You all know that a longtime UWT employee, Carl Smith, has gone to TCC, our neighbor institution here. And we're very happy for Carl, but we're also extremely happy to have Rodney Clark here with us now as well. I'll mention one more. Juanita Garcia is our new director of the Veteran and Military Resource Center. She was already a UW Tacoma employee and now has been elevated into that position. And there are many more, not many more, but there are several more. I'm sure I've missed a few that we have brought onto the UW Tacoma roster this summer. So another thing that has been going on, actually a lot of things with respect to facilities. Since we don't have as many people on campus as normal, Stanley Joshua and his team have been doing considerable maintenance work around campus, some lighting projects, some classroom renovations and things that are difficult to do when we're fully occupied. So a lot of that has been going on, some roof replacements, plumbing, so on and so forth. But also the design of our Milgard Hall is progressing nicely. That's going to probably be our only new building for this decade. So we're very excited about that building. To remind you, it's for expansion of the Milgard School, one of our fastest growing schools. It will house our new engineering programs and expansion of engineering. It will also house our Global Innovation and Design Laboratory. And then an added feature, it will have some common classroom spaces and event spaces for all of campus to use. So we're working on that right now. We're trying to maximize and get as many things into that building as we can. One new factor about this that the campus may or may not know about is the location. The desired location has changed. That building was originally slated to go next to Pinkerton, just south of Pinkerton. But after we looked at our campus master plan during the previous year, it was really decided and recommended that that space be saved for additional residence hall, dining in the future, because it would have proximity to a lot of the existing student spaces, Court 17, the Y, and so on and so forth. So they encouraged us to continue our academic blocks, which go along either side of the Prairie Line Trail. So right now we've proposed putting that building just south of Snoqualmie in part of the Craigle parking lot. Now, before everybody freaks out about that, we would provide the same amount of spaces somewhere else on campus if we take part of Craigle parking lot. But that move of a site location for Milgard Hall is going to be voted on by the Board of Regents in October. But the design of the building is progressing. And as I said, we're trying to maximize the space in that building so it's full activities for campus in that building. Along with that, the remodeling of Tioga and Snoqualmie is progressing. That is in the detailed design phase, and the Milgard Hall is just starting the detailed design phase. We've actually added one component with the engineering labs. They're going to be in the basement of where I am right now. I'm in GWP, and we're going to have engineering labs across the back of GWP, space that's not very accessible to the public. It's ideal for labs. We were going to put 3 labs down there to provide additional space in Milgard Hall, and now we're going to put 4 labs down there to get a little bit more common space in Milgard Hall. So those are moving along well now, and I will turn it back to Joe and let him talk about coming to campus and those kinds of things, and you'll hear back from me a little bit later on some of these other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So I'd like to talk quickly about a committee that has been meeting pretty much since we left campus, called Back to the Future. So we kind of took the two committees that formed on the Seattle campus, Back to Work and Back to School, combined them into one committee on our campus called Back to the Future. And we've been working hard on all of the site-specific safety plans, COVID safety plans for campus. So whenever you come back here, you'll be entering into a space that is guided by a site-specific plan that a lot of work went into to create those to make this a safe space. So I want to talk about coming to campus. So first of all, come to campus if it's necessary. And there will be times when it is necessary to come to campus. But if it's not necessary, work remotely. We have figured out how to do that quite well. But if you have to come to campus, a couple things you should follow. One is the 3 W's. You'll start hearing a lot about the 3 W's. Where it is, where is it? Wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. So wear a mask, wash your hands, watch your distance. Those are the kind of the primary things that you can do to keep yourself and others safe. There's another piece of the puzzle, and that is attestations. So if you do come to campus, if you're faculty or staff, through Workday, you can go do an attestation and attest to your health and that you're not running a temp and all of the things on that list. I'm not going to read it, but do your attestation. If you're a student, you will see in many places, both in Canvas, we're hoping my UW, on other mechanisms, you'll see the way to do a student attestation, attesting to your health if you are coming to campus, if you have to be on campus. So that's the first thing, is coming to campus. I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone on campus, on that committee. I want to thank our staff who have really done a stellar job of preparing us for this new COVID world that we're operating in. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank our faculty. Our faculty have done an unbelievable job of moving to remote learning, and I think our students are going to be well served this quarter. So thank you to our staff, thank you to our faculty, and thank you to our students too, for these are challenging times, and I'd like to thank you for hanging in there and being part of our UW family. So talking about that, one of the things that we've done, I've heard from a fair number of students that, I want to be able to come to campus because I've got kids at home, or I've got siblings at home, or I don't have, stable Wi-Fi access. So I want to be able to come and either attend class, either synchronously or asynchronously, or I want to come study. So there's been a team of people, and I really want to thank our engineering folks, Elizabeth and Tessa in engineering, and Anna Marie in the registrar's office, for just doing a stellar job of creating 131 spaces on our campus that are going to be reservable through 25 Live. So if you live further from campus and need to come to campus to study, you'll be able to reserve a space and know that you have your space available. So reservable through 25 Live. There's cleaning stations in place. He's put up the screen now, so you'll be able to go to your favorite space on campus, pull up the floor plan, see whether those spaces have power or not. Sometimes people need power, sometimes they don't. Have a little picture of the space. Those spaces all have signage at them reminding you to be safe. And with QR codes, if you haven't reserved it yet and just happen to be on campus and want to reserve it, QR code for reserving it. The other thing we're doing, if there's students playing along at home right now, we are hiring some students to act as student public health ambassadors we call them that. I wanted to first call them concierges, but to really help our students to find spaces, to reserve spaces, and do this in a seamless way. So That is one piece of how we're addressing access to campus space. The other piece is I'd like to thank Patrick Powell and his team in technology for we've expanded the Wi-Fi capabilities in a parking lot, in the Cradle parking lot. So the whole Cradle parking lot and the spaces again up against the Mattress Factory are Wi-Fi accessible. If students want to come to campus for that but don't feel like they want to come inside, they can come park in the parking lot. You won't be charged parking. Park in the parking lot, connect to Wi-Fi. Patrick has even gone so far as to think about a way that, because we don't want 50, 60 cars out there idling to keep their batteries charged in their laptop. So you'll be able to, if your battery starts to run low, you can send a message to our IT folks and they will bring a battery out to your car. So really trying to make this a system that's going to work well for our students to access campus. So I'd like to thank all of the people who have worked really hard to make that happen. We're bringing in a new class of students. Mentha's going to talk about our students. One of the things we did though is we surveyed all of our new incoming students. And I wish I had the technology where people could guess what the top 3 things, what their worries are. So I'll tell you what our students are concerned about, the top 3 things that they are concerned about. One is school life balance and being able to make school work with their work life, their family life, the rest of their life. One is school workload. That was number 3. Number 2 is school workload. So the workload of being able to make this work into their life. And number 1, and I don't know if this is specific to COVID or if it is always number 1, we'll know in the future, it's grades. Students are concerned about grades. So I think it's important for us as faculty and staff to know that and be aware of what students' concerns are. So that report on that study will be coming out across campus so that we can all be more aware of what our students' needs are and concerns are and how we can better serve them. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Jill Purdy to talk about faculty support.
Thank you, Joe. We know that this is an interesting and challenging time for faculty as you prepare to deliver the excellent academic experience to our students that we have always strived for. And many of us are doing it under challenging and difficult conditions, working from home without the resources we're accustomed to, and doing it remotely, which is challenging us in terms of some of the pedagogical techniques that we're accustomed to using. Please recognize that UW is acutely aware of the challenge this presents for many people, particularly with the additional challenges that you may be experiencing in caring for loved ones or being in a shared workspace from home. We've worked hard to try to put support systems in place for you. Technical support systems from information technology, the Office of Digital Learning, and the UW Tacoma Library are there to help you find the resources and technology you need to make great decisions about how you are going to teach, what materials you're going to use, and what strategies are available to support remote instruction that really helps students achieve the learning objectives that you have set out for them in your syllabus. We recognize that there are other kinds of supports needed beyond those teaching supports as well. And you may have seen a message from the UW president this morning regarding caregiving. There are caregiving resources offered for all UW employees that I encourage you to explore. Support for your health and well-being is something that we care about significantly. So we've got the CareLink Employee Assistance Program, as well as resources. And there are a set of links on our own campus counseling and psychological services website that direct you to mental health and other kinds of community support resources that are accessible for faculty. Students can be referred to counseling and psychological services for support if you see a need and wish to provide that access for your students. There are training opportunities that deal with personal and professional health whether it's physical health, mental health, time and stress management, financial management. And these are offered both through CareLink webinars and through UW's professional and organizational development webinars. Guidance and tips on teleworking, on maintaining your research and doing what you can to continue advancing your career and academic mission are all available across a variety of UW websites. And so we are working to make sure that information is front and center and readily available to you so that you can continue to thrive in this remote working environment. And that's indeed what we are hoping for. You know, there have been a few specific questions about access to campus, and I want to just highlight that faculty are able to use their offices on campus. Have to keep those 3 W's in mind. Do your attestation before you come to campus. Wear your mask, wash your hands, watch your distance. You should use your office alone. But if you would like to record or deliver remote lectures from your office, that is available to you. It's also possible to reserve a classroom for that purpose. It's important to remember that faculty are specifically designated as critical personnel, which is what grants you access to campus at this time. However, family members are not critical personnel, so please don't bring those folks with you to campus. We'll be offering a lot of information and resources on our website and through other additional communications. But my main message here was really to just share with you that there are a lot of people who have spent the last 3 or 4 months across this entire institution thinking about how to support faculty success. And faculty success is just very tightly linked to student success. And we wish for both of those things in these challenging times. So thanks for that opportunity, Joe. Back to you.
Thank you, Jill. One of the things that I'd like to mention before I turn it over to Mentha that I forgot was that to access campus, all of our buildings will be closed to the public so that we can keep our spaces clean and safe. So to access campus, whether you're a faculty, staff, or students, you will need your Husky card. And your Husky card has to be one of the new ones that goes on the scanner. It's not the old swipe ones, it's the new one that goes on the scanner and allows you to enter the building. So just remember that if you don't have your Husky card, you'll want to, there is a remote way to get that on the registrar's site where you can submit your photo and get a new Husky card if you're not ready for that. So both students and staff and faculty will need their Husky card updated, make sure that that you have access to the buildings. So. And now, Mentha. Mentha Hines-Wilson, our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, has a message of welcome and what services will be available for students.
Thank you, Joe, and good morning to everyone who is joining us on today's Town Hall. I bring you greetings on behalf of the Division of Student Affairs, and there are 4 different points that I would like to highlight for everyone this morning. The first is I have a snippet of information regarding enrollment for the autumn quarter, information regarding student support services. I'd like to announce our testing strategy and the options that will be available to members of the Tacoma community, and also to help individuals understand where they can go to find quick, reliable, up-to-date information. So in terms of autumn quarter, we are most excited because next year we will kick off the start of the academic year. The campus will welcome over 1,400 new undergraduate and undergraduate students, and we are projecting that the enrollment for the autumn quarter 2020 will be higher than it was for autumn 2019. So I want to repeat that. We are projecting enrollment increases for autumn 2020. A full report will be provided to you after the census date, but at this moment, I really want to thank all of the students who have chosen to return to campus and re-enroll with us. And I also want to thank the students, faculty, staff, and alumni who have assisted in nudging students to consider the University of Washington-Tacoma as the place to begin their enrollment. Right now, we have a small team of PAC advisors and student affairs staff who are on the campus actually participating in a curbside welcome. And so all of our new students are receiving, if you can see this, a pack of information that includes a Husky mask, a checklist, and a whole host of other things to let individuals know that they are a part of a larger community and to prepare them for the next journey that awaits them. So we're very, very excited and looking forward to all of our campus community wrapping their arms around our new students, our new faculty members as well, new staff members, and the entire community. We are in this together, and Huskies, we believe in supporting each other in packs. The second thing that I wanted to acknowledge, as others have, that this really is a challenging time. We are all living with really multiple stressors. So I want to encourage as many individuals as possible to seek out support. And I have to tell you, I really have been inspired by the nimbleness, the innovativeness, and just the calm that has been provided by faculty and staff across the campus as we look for careful ways to bring students and our communities into these spaces. And so in terms of student support services, I want to let you know that the full complement of services remain available. This ranges from advocacy and support, academic advising, career services, counseling center, disability services, the First Gen program, financial aid, TLC, and others, including the Y. All of those offices are operating with virtual programming. They're available for live chats, personal conversations, and advice during administrative hours. So that's Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The exception is the Y. They have hours that extend into the evening. So as Joe mentioned, students will also be able to reserve space on campus. And I want to thank everyone that worked really, really hard to have that program in place. Additionally, the RSO leaders met last week, and they too are scheduling activities. The same is true for our RAs in Court 17 and the leadership of UWT. And all of these programs will follow the current health and safety protocols. Now, when it comes to health and safety, that is absolute priority number one for all of us. So I'm asking everyone to make use of the preventative measures and become well acquainted with them. And you've heard about the 3 W's. So this means wearing a face covering in all public spaces. So that's traveling from the parking lot into the classroom building, into the restrooms, into the Y. One must have a mask in order to enter those spaces. We'd like you to practice social distancing, wash your hands, and to obtain a COVID test. So free testing is available right here in Tacoma on the UWT campus. And there are 2 options that are available for you. Now, students and faculty and staff, I know that you've been barraged with all of these communications, all these checklists, what to do, when to do it, how to do it. So let me whittle it down very easily for you. Testing. The first option is available on October 2nd, which is a Friday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the Y. This is a part of the Husky coronavirus testing program, and more information is available on site. Second thing, if you aren't available at that time, there's another window. We have mobile testing that's made available through the Pierce County Health Department. Those dates are available on the website as well. The next testing date is scheduled for Thursday, October 8th, and there will be another testing option available on October 24th. How do you learn about all this information? Toggle over to the university's webpage. On the main page, you'll see up-to-date information about the university, and there is a particular portion that talks about coronavirus updates. Then, if you click over to the Student Affairs website, we are working diligently to keep that dynamic and up-to-date as well. So there's information there regarding free testing. All of the offices are listed as well as their administrative hours. There's even our email address and our telephone number, and we really do welcome contact and interaction with us. So I will stop there, but I thought I would also offer, because this question has come up too, well, how many students, how many staff have actually tested positive on our campus? So as of yesterday, we know of 9 students who tested positive and they have recovered. And we also are aware of 3 staff members who also tested positive and they recovered. So please take the time to get tested. If you're feeling ill, please do not come to campus. And we do have a whole mechanism of support services that are available. So welcome, excited to move into this fall quarter. We're in this together, and you're always, always, always welcome to contact me or any member of the Student Affairs team. Go Huskies.
Thank you, Mentha. I'd also like to add that we also have flu shots coming to campus on Friday, October 16th. So, and you can sign up for time slots so that we can keep everyone spread out to keep that safe as well. And we will send information in the follow-up for this around signing up to get your flu shots. So, Mark, a few people are interested in hearing about our budget. Would you like to talk about our budget now?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. And unfortunately, this information is a little drier than what Mentha and Jill and Joe have been talking about. But you deserve to know, and I have the responsibility to give you this information in a clear and transparent measure. I will give you some information today, but I'm always available to come to any gathering unit, academic unit, administrative unit, and talk to you more about this. I take it very seriously, and I want everyone to know whatever it is they want to know about our budget process and the ongoing results. So when everyone left in June, we were just finishing the approval process for what we called our provisional budget, because that was provisional because we knew we were in an economic downturn, but the Board of Regents did approve our budget. And to go back in history a little bit, like a broken record since I've been here, I've been trying to get the campus to move so our spending is more in line with our income. We were getting dangerously close to those two numbers overlapping, and then when we had a little bit of enrollment decline, it kind of stuck a stick in our spokes of our wheel last fall, and that is the reason we want to have a margin between those two things. So we had just finished 2 years worth of strategic reductions, first in the administrative areas, and we took a little more than 3% reduction in administrative areas in 19, and then last year I asked the academic areas to look at a 2.5% reduction, which the academic areas did. That was about $805,000, and they just finished that up, and we got that budget approved with a little wiggle room between what our expected income would be, and that was based on a flat enrollment for this fall. So the news that Mentha just gave us that the enrollment may be up a little bit is actually really good news, but we had just a little wiggle room. And then we'd also worked very hard to set aside a small pool of funds to be able to deploy back to new things to enhance enrollment, to enhance retention, rebounding from COVID, and things like that. We went through a very rigorous process with the faculty assembly leadership, the staff council leadership, and ASUWT to prioritize what the criteria would be for jumpstarting those new things. We did that, and the number one priority were things that had to do with retention, then enrollment development, and then faculty and staff development after that. So we had just started that process. First thing we did was brought on a second online learning specialist because of COVID-19 and going to totally remote instruction. That was very well received and necessary on campus. We also decided to permanently fund things in the Office of Equity and Inclusion that had in the past been funded by SAFC or one-time money each year. So that is every request on the table of the Office of Equity and Inclusion was permanently funded as well, and a few other things. But then we got the letter from the Office of Financial Management from the state. The UW received a letter that said, whoa, time out, everyone, be prepared to give back as much as 15% of the state allocation in the coming fiscal year. Well, that is a big number. That is $3.8 million if they do indeed ask us to give that entire amount back. So we stopped funding new things. We put the brakes on there and held tight to see what was going to happen further. Well, additional things did happen. At the beginning of August, I learned from the Board of Deans and Chancellors meeting that the UW, as a precautionary measure, was going to go ahead and take the first step and bring back 5% of that, because the state's letter said model 5%, 10%, and 15% reductions. So the UW worked together with all of us and said, let's set aside and give back right now 5%. Well, for our campus, that is $1.175 million, almost $1.8 million. About a third of that 3.8 I mentioned earlier. So we were asked to give that back formally on August 17th. That's the day they asked us, and I think we formally give it back maybe on October 2nd. But our work over the past 2 years came in really handy. What we did is just use that little bit of margin that we had set aside and that little pool of continuing money that was still left over, had not yet been deployed. We used that as the money we gave back. So therefore, it did not affect any of our units. We did not have to do any additional layoffs or furloughs or ask anybody else on campus for any reductions as we move into this academic year. That's the good news. The bad news is when we gave that money back, that is essentially all of our flexibility. So we're back to the spot right now where we don't really have any operating margin. If we have a downfall in enrollment or additional things that we need to pay for on campus that are significant, we will not have any operating funds for that. So that's where we are right now. But we are continuing to model the 10% and 15%. So we gave back the 5, but we've been asked to model. They're not saying they're going to take it back yet, but we need to be prepared for that because on this campus, we believe in transparency, interaction. So the deans, the faculty assembly, the faculty councils, the unit heads, all need to work together throughout the fall to come up with how we would reduce if the state does ask us to give either 10 or 15% back in the coming legislative cycle. So what we have talked about doing on campus, since that's likely to be late in the year, a lot of that money will already be spent. We would just kick the can down the road, so to speak, to July 2021 and go ahead and fund out of reserves any money that we would have to give back this year and then have those reductions ready for the next fiscal year. So that's our plan right now. And as I said, we are just launching the effort to work with the faculty councils, the unit heads, and to put these things into kind of writing. We need to accumulate what it is that we would reduce and be prepared to reduce in July 2021 if we were asked to give additional money back. So I know there are a couple questions about the budget, and if I haven't answered those in that brief overview, I'm sure Joe will provide me those questions when the time comes. Now, before I hand it back to Joe, I want to talk a little bit about how we've been responding to racism and anti-Black sentiment on campus as well. And as you might imagine, when it first happened, when the George Floyd murder happened back in May, one of the first things that people thought about were our students. Our students were at a place in the quarter where there's a lot of stress. Finals, they were studying for finals. They were dealing with their first quarter online. There was the economic downturn around them, COVID, all kinds of things. So we were really worried about that. The president and the faculty senate worked together to make some legislation to provide some relief for how people grade. Dr. Purdy and I followed up with some messages to campus about really looking at each and every situation to provide accommodation to our students who are already suffering as they move through that particular quarter, spring 2020. So that was the first thing we did. I also reached out to our BSU, our African Student Association, and some other student groups that had solidarity with our Black students on campus, and asked them if there is any individual student that has issues with a faculty or a class that needs some resolution or needs some accommodation. I will personally work through that situation with them. So we sent that message out to those students, and then we began to look at actual things we could do on campus. I reached out to our BSU president, talked to her, that was Amari Hill at the time, about maybe what we could do along with our BSU to help ease the situation with our Black students on campus. That kind of morphed into an art project down on Pacific Avenue where they could kind of release after the quarter and paint on some of those boards, express their feelings on some of the boards that were covering the windows on Pacific Avenue. That was very well received, and we're saving those pieces of art to display later. Also on campus, as I said, we immediately funded Dr. McShay's office permanently. I asked Dr. McShay to change his position to Vice Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion. So we would have that position in the room with all of our leadership committees on campus, and he graciously agreed to do that. So that position now is a formal vice chancellor with all the same authorities as the other vice chancellors on campus. So that was done right away. Also, my advisory board chair and I got together and brought the advisory board in and talked about what we could do as a community together. There are 2 initiatives that are coming out of that work, and we'll talk about them probably more in a later town hall, but I'll briefly mention the first has to do with the UW's Business Equity Initiative. We're going to focus on this campus specifically at Black-owned businesses in the South Puget Sound, and particularly Tacoma, when we do purchasing, contracting, hiring, and those kinds of things. And we're also going to be very serious about our metrics that we measure our progress in these issues on our campus and make those more public for everybody to see. Other things that we're doing, our deans got together and brought the leadership together, and we've been meeting and talking about how we're better prepared to address these issues. And then each of us individually on the leadership team, I've asked everybody to look inside and to do personal reflection and professional development to prepare us as we go throughout this year. Just by coincidence, I had started a book club early in May, and we were reading Kindy's book on how to be an anti-racist. That's been very helpful as we've moved through this. And I will put a post up about my continuing journey soon on my webpage. But let me turn it to Dr. McShay now to talk about a couple of the other initiatives that are coming out of his office. Dr. McShay?
Thank you, Mark, and good morning to everyone. And on behalf of the Office of Equity and Inclusion, I bring you greetings. My name is Dr. James McShay. I have the pleasure of serving as the Vice Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. In addition to the things that Mark has shared regarding the permanent funding that has been made available to the Office of Equity and Inclusion, we will be better positioned now to offer a broader kind of range of support to the campus, particularly as it relates to advancing our campus strategic goals around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also working to help us lay the foundation to build an anti-racist institution. And so as we move into this academic year, our focus is going to be threefold. One, we're going to provide support to the campus community during a time where our current political climate is so derisive and divisive and has been marginalizing for so many within our community, particularly our Black and Brown and Indigenous community members. And so it's so critically important that we create space for community building, for members of our campus to be in conversation around what does it mean to be in solidarity with one another? How do we build coalitions? How do we work to advocate for Black lives and promote Black thriving and all of the work that we are doing here on campus? And so one of the initiatives that we're excited to launch this year is a new inaugural program called the Black Lives Matter Program Series and Virtual Teach-In. And so this particular program series will center Black voices of Black activists, Black scholars, members within our Black community, including our students who will be driving these conversations about what does it entail or what does it mean for us to bring an end to racial injustice? What do we need to do to contribute to this effort? And so we want to create spaces that allow for meaning making and for us to work to look at how we can engage and work that brings a real transformative kind of change, right, to our campus community, our broader community, and then also bring change across the country and beyond. And so we are excited to announce that we have invited Patrice Cullors, who is one of the co-founders of the Black Lives Matter movement, to our campus this fall. And so we're looking to confirm a date, but we believe it's going to be the latter part of October. So she was on our campus a few years ago when the Black Lives Matter movement first became well known. And so she's going to talk a little bit about its history, where she sees it going currently, and then also how do we work to advance the movement through our own coalition building and work that we're doing within the community. Across the rest of the academic year, we will be having other events that will be driven by our own faculty and members within the community as well. And so please be on the lookout for information regarding those events. For our faculty, please direct your students to these learning opportunities. And for members of the outside community too, we will be inviting them into these conversation spaces. Second, we're going to work on our own institutional capacity building to build an anti-racist institution. And so there are many efforts that are currently underway. One of them that you know a lot about, my hope is, right, is our climate survey implementation process. So back in October of last year, Rankin and Associates administered a campus climate survey, which we completed and we received our findings. And then during this summer, back in May and early June, the consulting firm Rankin and Associates kind of shared those findings. They delivered a presentation and answered questions from our community. If you'd like to read the report, which is now online, I direct you to the website Your Voice at UW.org, and you can access the actual report, the executive summary, as well as a presentation that Rankin and Associates delivered. So I'm happy to announce that of all the campuses within the UW system that were surveyed, UW Tacoma had the highest response rates at 34%, which really helps us to have a higher level of confidence in the findings that came out of this particular survey. So what's next? We have formed 4 implementation teams that will look carefully at the data and begin to identify gaps, look at specific unanswered questions, and then begin to develop a series of concrete actions that will be presented to the campus community with the goal of helping us understand how do we work to eliminate barriers that are preventing various members of our campus community from bringing their full selves to the life of our campus, whether that's in a workplace or in a classroom or in other community spaces, on our campus. And so that is something that will happen. Those recommendations will be put forward in the beginning of winter quarter of next year. I also want to just give a special kind of acknowledgement to our colleague, Dr. Marion Harris, and for her work in helping to bring this particular climate assessment project to the UW system, not just Tacoma, but because of her advocacy efforts, that work led to her, encouraging and bringing our colleagues along in senior administration to help them understand how powerful an exercise this would be for the Tri-Campus. The other institutional capacity building effort that's underway is for us to really build out our DEI faculty development resources. And so we are just thrilled and really grateful to have Tanya Velasquez serve as the Faculty Development Associate, who's working with the Office of Equity Inclusion. This is in partnership, her assignment, her new post is in partnership with the Office of Academic Affairs and as well as Equity and Inclusion. And so her goal this year will be to launch a pilot initiative where she'll be building out new resources and supports for faculty to help them better understand how to use inclusive pedagogical practices as well as anti-racist pedagogical practices to promote understandings around how to improve student learning, student engagement, a sense of belonging and overall success of our students. And so these new kind of resources are going to support and complement a faculty-led signature program on our campus called SEED. And so we're really excited about that to support that work, as well as really strengthen the resources that we're making available to our SEED program. And then also she's going to work to scale up existing resources that are in place to support our faculty of color. And so we currently have existing the Faculty of Color Learning Community. And so we're really wanting to strengthen that particular experience and make that particular offering more accessible to members of our faculty of color community on our campus. The other initiative that we're excited to announce is the LEAD program. It stands for Leading for Equity, Anti-Racism, and Diversity. It's an institute, and it's a 10-week-long experience, and it's a cohort-based experience, and it's designed to help faculty and staff who are mid-level administrators be better equipped with tools for reducing bias within workplace settings, for disrupting microaggressive behavior, for managing conflict and responding to it, as well as being able to better coach and mentor and create opportunities for career advancement for Black and Indigenous faculty and staff within their workspaces. And so that particular initiative will be launching at the beginning of the winter quarter. And then also, I have partnered with the Staff Association, Academic HR, as well as Staff HR, for us to begin work on developing a similar staff development program that's focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of equipping our staff with those skills, knowledge, dispositions, so that they too can work to create culture change within their workplace settings and improve the climate, so that we can foster increased belonging, inclusiveness, and overall kind of success, right, for members of those different work units across campus. And then finally, the area of focus that I'd like to share with you that we're working on is to enhance existing physical spaces that bring communities together, foster critical interactions that allow folks to build relationship and promote opportunities for learning around issues related to identity and difference. And so the new CEI, the Center for Equity and Inclusion, is still scheduled to be expanded and relocated into the first floor of the Snoqualmie TLB library complex. And so we're pretty close to finalizing the schematic design for the new space. And there's been lots of excitement around this project. And the hope for this space now being co-located with the Teaching and Learning Center, as well as critical service delivery areas within the library. And we're excited to see some really powerful and rich synergies form across these units, with the goal of really creating this hub where students who are now being served and being able to kind of foster new connections and relationships across the various units that they're working in, but at the same time creating opportunities and space for students to discover who they are, who they want to become, to find community and to build relationships both in groups as well as the various groups that they are part of. And so that work, our hope is going to move forward, and we expect for the project to be completed by the end of next year. So with that said, I'm just going to share that an annual report for the Office of Equity and Inclusion will be sent out to the beginning of October. So be on the lookout for that. And that highlights all of the various initiatives, programs, efforts that have taken place this past year, as well as provides you with a look at the work that we will be doing this coming year. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Mark.
Thank you very much, James. That was a very thorough coverage of that, and we're excited about all the activities there. Last Monday, we had a leadership retreat on campus, and one of the vice chancellors asked me what my priority was going to be for this coming year. And I don't think I gave her a very good answer at the time, but I'm prepared to give it right now, and that is to work on our campus culture. For all of these activities that James has just outlined to be effective on our campus, we need to overcome our culture that we have on our campus. We have for a long time had a toxic culture in pockets of campus where we've had a hard time working together to get some of these major activities accomplished. So it's going to start with each one of us. I'm asking you to be kind to each other as we work together, to always assume the best in your colleagues. These things that we have to solve together are difficult. They've taken years, hundreds of years to build up, and we're not always going to agree on the solutions, but we have to work together. So I am going to spend my year working on improving the culture of campus, and it will start with me, the things I do on a daily basis to my fellow employee, the students, the faculty that work here. So I encourage you all to take part in this work that we do together. And I'm going to use a quote that one of my fellow deans said to us in a leadership meeting a couple weeks ago. This is Dean Rachel Indo. She reminded us of the James Baldwin quote that not everything we face can be changed, but that nothing can be changed if we don't until we face it. And that's true for this issue of culture on our campus. So we need to face it head on and get to work on that. And then I want to leave you with one last thing I learned from another dean, Dr. Sharon Faught, as we were having a meeting about 2 weeks ago, told us that some different songs have meaning to her and have helped her through this crisis. And she shared one of those with me. And it was a song I was very familiar with. And I will put the link to this version of it in the Tacoma Together that comes out after this town hall. And it's the song The Weight by the band. And it's done by musicians from all over the world. And if you listen to the words or go look at the lyrics, it's about carrying the weight for each other, taking on some of that load. So that's what I'm asking our campus to do. Think about your fellow man or woman, your fellow student, your fellow faculty member. Help take on the load of that particular individual. We are all in this together, and we need to work on it together. So thank you very much. Let me turn it back to Joe. Maybe we have time for a couple quick questions.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, you all had a lot to say today. And we're at our hour, but I do want to, so we're not going to be able to get to all of the questions, but I do want to let those who submitted them know that we will put them together with answers to those questions in the follow-up to this town hall. But there is one question, Mark, that I think I'd like you to address. We'll go over maybe a couple minutes here because I think it's important, and it has come up in a couple of settings. How much did the August 29th fireworks event cost, and why did it proceed despite voiced concerns?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. That event cost almost $17,000. It was $16,900, and I have an itemized budget for that event that has been provided to me, and that money was given to us specifically for that purpose by a community sponsor that asked for that to go towards that event. Why did it go forward when there was significant requests to not go forward? Well, people saw the request to not go forward, but there were a lot of other discussions behind the scenes to go forward. I took that very seriously. We thought about it for a couple days, and in the end, after all the information was collected, the decision we believed was best, and then I made the final decision, was to go forward. I had promised that event to the founders and the donors that were there in July. We had sent invitations out to over 60,000 people in the South Puget Sound. I had received a lot of emails. People were looking forward to that event. It was a time when people can't get out. People can't afford to go to events. This was free. It was streamed online, or you could come and watch it, even though we didn't say where it is. Now, we do have a town hall specifically to talk about that and the continuing celebration. The Faculty Executive Council has asked that we put this together, and it's scheduled for October 2nd, and I'm sure you'll see a note about that soon. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark. We're a few minutes over time now, so I have to make the commitment to those people who submitted questions that we will put those in the follow-up to this town hall with answers to them. And if there's enough of them, we will move them to our FAQs that are accessible through the front page of the website. So, Mark, did you want to say a few words to close things up here?
Sure, Joe, I'll apologize for the questions also. We did have more, and due to our planning, we didn't allow enough time here today for questions, but we'll get those answered. There are so many things that happened since we had the last town hall. We'll also follow this up with the Tacoma Together a communication, which will have links to some of this information, and we can schedule more town halls as the campus likes us to. So I wanted to thank everyone too. Jill and Mentha both thanked the staff and the faculty and the students. I want to thank everybody as well. This is not fun. I try to make it fun, but it's difficult on everyone what we're going through as a society across the world. And at UW Tacoma, I do appreciate the work of our faculty, staff, and students, and all those who were on this Zoom today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for my fellow presenters and for the technology folks that helped put this together. So we look forward to a successful fall 2020.